Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thanks for holding this hearing. I also want to thank our witnesses for being here also. Commissioner, I want to thank you for the call we had yesterday. It was very, very helpful, and hopefully we can move forward on some ideas. In fact, I'll even bring them up for that matter, as you probably anticipated. Won't be my questioning, but I think there are issues that are important to my home state. And so I've heard from many of my constituents their strong concerns over the proposed IRS changes to the filing of information returns for reported winnings from bingo, keno, and slot machines. Due to the administrative burden proposed, 13,000 customers have signed a petition so that the reporting threshold for bingo, keno, and slot machines would not be reduced. And I, too, share their concerns about these proposed rules. Across the U.S., the gaming industry supports 1.7 million jobs and about $240 billion in activity, no small sum. My staff has had multiple conversations with your office in regards to these proposed rules, and I am pleased that we had that opportunity to have the same discussion between you and I yesterday. That said, like many other taxpayers, was frankly kept in dark regards to some of receiving responses from the IRS to better address these proposed rules. My questions were answered yesterday, some of them. Grateful for that. Your comment period is extended, and I appreciate that since it did take a couple months in order to get a response from your office. So as I mentioned yesterday, my comments will be coming in the next week or so. So anyway, thank you for your help and support and extending the deadline in order to get those questions in. The chairman talked a little bit about public trust for the IRS's success, and you're familiar with that. The number of weaknesses, the ability to effectively protect taxpayers' confidentiality, integrity, and availability of certain taxpayer data, unfortunately, was not implemented. The Inspector General's here. He spoke on it a little bit, and you alluded to it during your testimony. It's my opinion, though, that a properly done tax reform would not only provide a simpler code, but would also provide the IRS with tools to combat tax-related identity theft and assist the victims of this crime. I told you yesterday on the phone I'm here to help. How can I help you?
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate, again, the Chairman's clarity about what we need to work together on this. It's not a political issue. As we've said for some time, we need to get information returns earlier. It would be a great help to us. We need to have the authority to what's called mask W-2s so that we can assure that they're produced by legitimate companies, not by fraudulent companies as we go forward. We may need authority to work with the partnership we have with the tax preparers and tax software companies as well as the states to provide minimum requirements for data that authenticates taxpayers when they file their tax returns as we go forward. And then ultimately, as I've noted, our discussion today is not about something that was the result of a funding shortage, but the challenge we face more broadly dealing with the criminal enterprises around the world does depend upon making sure we have adequate funding to continue to rebuild our systems to get them into what I call the early 21st century rather than the late 19th century.
Yeah. Commissioner, a previous Finance Committee Chairman, Max Backus, he had discussed a draft that would disallow taxpayer Social Security numbers to be put on W-2 forms. What's your view of this proposal? I'd ask the same thing to the Inspector General.
We've suggested that actually we just ought to get the last 4 digits on a W-2 form. What's more important to us is if we can what's so-called put hashtags on those, and then we may lead legislative authority, much like the number of companies who can provide paper that produces the money is allowed to be constrained by statute. We may need to be able to have those who produce W-2s through a competitive process be limited in number so that we can make sure the W-2s and the hashtags are appropriate as a way of, again, trying to make sure that the identifier is legitimate.
Okay. Mr. George, think that'd be helpful?
I do, actually, Senator. I agree with the Commissioner there.
Okay, okay. Mr. Chairman, time's run out.